You pull into a gas station at 11 p.m. and there's a semi idling in the back corner, lights off, engine humming low. Your first instinct is practical. Why not just get a room? It's a reasonable thought. It's also built on a version of truck driving that doesn't exist. Long-haul trucking isn't a job where someone drives until they're tired and decides where to stop. It's a precision system where one unplanned overnight can delay medication to a hospital, empty a shelf 3 states away, or collapse a dozen delivery schedules at once. The question isn't why drivers sleep in the cab. The question is why you ever thought they had a choice. Why can't drivers leave? Start with the assumption that feels obvious. The cab is a budget decision. The company won't cover a room, so the driver makes do. You'd probably run the same math. Long day, tired, just find a bed somewhere. But that logic only works if the driver is free to leave. They aren't. From the moment a trailer is sealed and loaded, everything inside it, frozen meals, prescription drugs, electronics, industrial chemicals, sits under the legal custody of that driver. Not the carrier, not the dispatcher, the driver. That responsibility doesn't pause when the cab goes dark. Cargo theft in the United States runs roughly $35 billion a year. And the people behind it aren't opportunists. Professional theft rings monitor truck stops systematically. They know which trailers carry high-value freight, and they know, down to the minute, how long a driver is federally required to stay off duty. An unattended cab isn't an oversight. To the people watching it, it's a window. Sleeping in the cab isn't a financial choice. It's a custody decision. The driver isn't resting away from the job. They're resting as part of it. Who controls the clock? Even if the cargo were perfectly safe and the company paid for the room, it wouldn't matter, because the federal government has already decided when that driver stops. The rules work like this. Drive 11 hours, then rest for 10. No exceptions. Hit 8 hours behind the wheel and you owe yourself a 30-minute break, whether you feel tired or not. Break any of it and you're not bending a company policy. You're breaking federal law. But here's what actually made it stick. Every truck on the road carries a small device bolted into the engine that records everything. Every mile, every minute, every time the key turns. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about your delivery window. When your rest time starts, the truck is done. Full stop. So now you know the clock doesn't belong to the driver, it belongs to the federal government. But that system had to come from somewhere. What trucking looked like before it existed is something most people have never heard of. That's coming up next, so stay with us. What lives behind the seat? Most people picture a semi as one thing. It's actually 2 completely different vehicles depending on the job. A day cab has no sleeping area, just the seat, the controls, and a fixed route that ends at home every night. A sleeper cab is something else entirely. Behind the driver's seat sits a full living quarters, a bunk 6 to 8 feet long, cabinets using every inch of available wall space, a compact refrigerator, and in premium builds, memory foam mattresses, dual climate zones, and sound insulation that cuts highway noise better than most city apartment walls. Used versions of those trucks in solid condition sell for more than a new entry-level car. Now run the hotel math against that. A highway motel near a truck route costs $80 to $150 a night. But the dollar figure is the smallest part of the problem. A loaded semi stretches 70 feet and needs close to 200 feet just to complete a safe turn. Most hotel access roads were built for passenger cars. The approach doesn't work physically, and drivers know it before they even consider slowing down. If parking could somehow be found, locating a legal overnight spot burns 45 minutes to 2 hours of the rest window the driver actually needs for sleep. Then it's checkout noise, an alarm at 3 a.m. that no one else in the building has any context for, and a setup that's nothing like the one already waiting 10 feet behind the seat. Drivers who've spent 15 or 20 years on the road don't describe the cab as the option they're stuck with. They describe it as the option they'd take regardless. Their schedule runs from there. Nobody has a key. Nobody knocks. The cab isn't the compromise. It's just home. How did this get built? To understand why this system exists, you have to go back to when it didn't. After World War II, freight by highway expanded faster than regulation could follow. When Eisenhower's interstate program took shape in 1956, the roads that followed moved everything: food, fuel, medicine, raw materials, faster than any previous system. The demand for drivers was enormous, and the pressure to keep loads moving was relentless. There were no federal rest requirements, no hour limits. The industry ran on endurance, coffee, and amphetamines. Drivers called them bennies, pills that crossed truck stop counters openly, sometimes suggested by dispatchers who needed freight delivered and didn't ask how the driver planned to stay conscious through the night. Rest was a liability. The driver who kept rolling made the delivery. The driver who stopped lost the load. There were logbooks, handwritten records of hours driven and hours rested. But a pen and a form are only as honest as the person holding them. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Falsifying those records became so normalized that drivers gave the fake logs their own name. They called them comic books. Federal investigators in the 1970s estimated that up to 75% of long-haul drivers were running falsified logs at any given time. Not a fringe problem, but 3 out of 4 drivers penciling in rest breaks that never happened, hours that existed only on paper. Federal rest rules arrived in 1984, but inspectors can only pull over so many trucks. The workaround survived for decades, right up until December 2019, when the ELD mandate made falsification structurally impossible. Nearly 90 years between the first long-haul routes and the moment a machine finally closed the gap between what the log said and what actually happened. Where does this touch you? You've been living inside this system your whole life. You just never noticed it. Think about those strawberries sitting in your fridge in January, fresh, bright red, completely out of season. They didn't appear by magic. They traveled 1,800 miles in a refrigerated trailer, kept at 34 degrees the entire way. Somewhere in Oklahoma on night 2 of that trip, the driver pulled over, shut the lights off, and slept 30 feet behind that fruit. Alarm set for 5 a.m. clock running. Remember when toilet paper disappeared from every store in early 2020? It wasn't stuck in a factory. A huge portion of it was already sitting in truck stop parking lots, loaded and ready to go. The problem was simple. The driver's rest clock hadn't expired yet. Product ready, truck ready, law said stop, so everything stopped. That empty strip of pavement behind your local Walmart isn't bad planning. Those trucks parked back there in the dark are often the exact same trucks that will roll up to the loading dock a few hours later and fill the shelves before you wake up. And when a major highway closes, a storm, a collapsed bridge, store shelves 3 states away start going empty 3 days later. You walk in and wonder why they're out of something basic. Now you know why. Why is this still changing? There are roughly 313,000 designated truck parking spaces in the United States for a driver population approaching 3.5 million. On peak nights, legal spots fill before midnight. When the clock expires and there's nowhere to park, drivers end up on entrance ramps and in corners of big box lots, because the alternative is a federal violation and there is nowhere else to go. Driver turnover at major carriers runs between 90 and 100% per year. The same seat, a completely different person within 12 months. The industry's own retention numbers make the argument plainly. The responses are real. Major truck stop chains are building facilities that look less like fuel stops and more like actual rest infrastructure. Private showers, prepared food, genuine sleep rooms, because keeping experienced drivers in the system eventually forces the question of whether the system is worth staying in. The next time you pass a dark sleeper cab at a rest area at 3 in the morning, you're not looking at someone who couldn't find a better option. You're looking at someone 900 miles from home, legally required to be exactly where they are, watching over a load that will be on a shelf before your alarm goes off. The rest is part of the job, as deliberate and as regulated as every mile before and after it. If there's something you walk past every day and wonder about, drop it in the comments. We read every single one, and the best suggestions make it into future videos. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.